climate change and overpopulation damage the Earth and make it on the verge of collapse. Food and water become scarce as a group of Americans are lining up to fill up their gallons from the water truck. To save the planet from overpopulation, the UN has every country around the world kill 20% of its population. In America, two guys in jumpsuits are taking out a dead guy in a body bag outside a small house, while their boss, Bob, signs the papers with the lady of the house and gives her a fat envelope of cash in return for the dead guy's sacrifice. It turns out that the dead guy enlisted in the euthanasia program. The American government made it to reduce the American population by 20%. Meanwhile, two guys working for a delivery company, Malik and Yusuf, have been watching this scene, and clearly they are sickened by what the government is doing. As Malik and Yusuf drive away, they come across posters encouraging people to enlist in the euthanasia program and sacrifice themselves to support their families. Malik is so disgusted by this program that he grabs the coffee and throws it at the posters. Shortly after, Malik and Yusuf arrive at a mansion to deliver a big piano. After carrying the piano to the second floor, the two watch a professor named Jared York on the news. He talks about supporting the euthanasia program and says American people should encourage their children to enlist. What's more, Jared adds, he's willing to sacrifice his 10-year-old son. Hearing what Jared has just said, Malik is pissed off, so he curses at him. He doesn't see him sign up for the program. However, Malik takes back his words and says sorry when he realizes Jared is the son of the mansion owner, the retired news anchor Charles York. But Charles tells him no need to say sorry because he too doesn't like what his son is saying. Following this, Charles talks to his wife, Dawn. She's a chef cooking for a big dinner after Charles invited all of his children to a family gathering. As she cooks, Dawn appears to be upset and doesn't want to talk. Charles is about to leave her be when she breaks down, so Charles comforts her while watching a news report about a lawsuit against his daughter, Rachel York.
On the York Therapeutics class action trial.
Afterward, Jared arrives at his father's mansion in his fancy car when he gets a call from his wife. She confronts him and tells him his 10-year-old son is crying his heart out, thinking his father is going to sacrifice him. As Jared asks to speak to his son, his wife says no and tells him not to come home before she hangs up on him. Shortly after, Rachel arrives along with her daughter Mia, as Charles greets them. After saying hello to his granddaughter, Charles talks to Rachel in private and asks her about her lawsuit. Rachel ignores him and goes to see her stepmother. Clearly, Charles has a strained relationship with his children.
I don't have time for whatever this is anyway.
Meanwhile, Noah, Charles's adopted son and a former alcoholic, is outside his father's mansion and is reluctant to go in because he's afraid of his father. He calls his girlfriend, Grace, from Alcoholics Anonymous and tells her he can't do it. Grace helps him to calm himself down and tells him to just go see his dad, as if nothing happened between them. After he hangs up with his girlfriend, Noah meets up with his sister Ashley, who's also on her way to Charles's mansion. As the two catch up, Ashley talks about how hard her life is as an aspiring actress, while Noah tells her about his new girlfriend. Following this, Ashley and Noah go in, and contrary to Noah's expectations, Charles gives him a warm welcome and hugs him tightly. Now that all the children are present, everybody takes their seat at the table, and Charles makes a toast where he says sorry to his children for having been an absent father. Charles then pauses and gets emotional, not knowing what to say, so he just finishes his toast by thanking his kids for accepting his invitation.
Family.
After the family enjoys their dinner, Rachel asks Charles why he invited them all while swearing in front of her daughter. Charles then breaks the news to his kids and reveals that he and Dawn decided to enlist in the euthanasia program. Rachel tells her daughter to watch TV, but Mia says no. When Charles tells her this is an adults-only meeting, Rachel swears and tells him if he gave her a heads up, she would have found a sitter for her daughter. As Charles tells Rachel to watch her mouth, Rachel swears some more, causing Charles to snap. telling her to watch her mouth. Seeing that this is a bad time, Mia leaves the table as Charles says sorry for losing his cool and tells his children to talk about his enlistment in a respectful manner. As Jared asks his father about the reason he decided to enlist, Charles replies that he would feel guilty if the government forced one of his children to sign up for the program. Jared tries to talk his father out of it, but Charles doesn't change his mind and says he only wants to do the right thing for his country.
We've decided to enlist.
Rachel thinks her father's decision is stupid, so she asks Dawn why she agreed to enlist. Given that she and Charles are popular, Dawn says the two of them would set a good example for the public if they sacrificed themselves. Ashley thinks her father is doing this to make himself look like a hero to the public. Noah throws a fit and goes on a rant about how his father's decision is stupid and doesn't make any sense. But Dawn calms him down and tells everyone they'll talk after dessert. Following this, a news report talks about the stories of people who enlisted this week. Noah is talking to his father about how the government lies about the number of enlisters, when Jared chimes in to defend the government, saying that this is just a conspiracy theory. Charles is on Noah's side on this, so he reminds Jared about the racist and lying politicians he interviewed on his show. Those politicians blamed the overpopulation on the Asian people. As Jared says that this is true, Charles tells him off and reminds him that this racism caused Dawn's restaurant to burn down.
They burned down a restaurant.
When Charles calls Jared an embarrassment to this family for his racist remarks, Jared sarcastically says he'll consult junkies like Noah on these global issues before going on television. Ashley shuts him up and reveals Noah has a girlfriend and is doing better in life. Hearing this, Charles is not pleased and asks Noah why he's dating an addict. To this, Noah reveals his girlfriend's name is Grace, and she stopped drinking years ago. As Noah shows Charles her picture, Noah reveals that he also works with her. Seeing that his son is doing great in life, Charles says he's proud before he goes to help Dawn. However, Charles finds out Dawn has left and wrote a note saying she can't do it and doesn't want to die, which is why she got cold feet and left.
What does she mean I can't do it?
To make matters worse, Bob arrives to do the government's dirty work. As he comes in, Bob asks Charles where Dawn is so he can get his job done. Ashley tells him Dawn left, and Charles says he's not doing this without Dawn. Bob seems disappointed after hearing this, so he asks to speak in private with Charles to have him sign some important paperwork. At Charles' office, Bob gives him some papers to sign, but Charles wants to read them first. As he does, Charles is shocked by what's written on paper, which Bob is using to blackmail him. That forces Charles to sign the papers and have himself euthanized.
What is this?
Afterward, all of the children are chatting in the kitchen when they see their defeated-looking father walking in. On his deathbed, Charles is listening to Noah play the piano when a suspicious Ashley asks him why he decided to do it without Dawn all of a sudden. Still, Charles reassures her that nothing is going on and says sorry to all of his children because he wasn't a good father. He then tells them his money will be divided evenly amongst them after he's gone. Finally, Charles tells his children to be good with one another and support each other. Charles then takes one final glance around him before he tells Bob to do his work. Bob injects Charles' blood with the anesthetic, causing Charles to fall into a deep sleep for good, never to open his eyes again. After the dead Charles is put into a body bag, Bob tells the Yorks how touching their father's last moments were.
I'm sorry I wasn't a better father.
However, none of them wants to see Bob again, so Ashley tells him to leave. Bob pretends to be leaving, but stops and tells the Yorks he needs a second body and he can't leave without it. Mia gets scared and asks what Bob is talking about. Noah tells Bob to leave, so Bob does so, but he has his armed people walk in and hold everybody at gunpoint. Bob gives them 2 hours before one of them volunteers to die in Dawn's place. Jared tells Bob to cut this out and threatens to call some of his administration friends. Unfortunately for him, Bob had his people scramble the house, making it impossible for anyone to make a phone call or use the internet. Bob then asks Rachel to have Mia come with him while she and her siblings figure out who will get euthanized in Dawn's place.
To decide which one of you is going to take Dawn's place.
This polite request enrages everybody, as Jared calls Bob a lunatic, but Bob assures him he's just doing his humane job and orders Rachel to give him Mia. Noah is telling Bob he's not taking her when one of Bob's people hits him. Bob then promises Rachel that he's not going to hurt her. He also assures her things will soon get ugly, so it's better for Mia to come with him. Hearing this, Rachel gives in and allows Bob to take Mia. Ashley tells Bob that she and her siblings didn't enlist in the first place. It was Dawn who did. Bob, who has a reply to everything, replies that he has people looking for Dawn, but they're not likely to find her in the next 2 hours. He wants his company to pay him for 2 bodies, which is why Bob wants one of the Yorks to take Dawn's place and make the sacrifice. When Noah asks Bob about what he said to Charles earlier, Bob answers that he said nothing. He tells them if anyone backs out after he enlisted, like Charles, then his bank accounts and assets will be frozen. He'll also end up in jail.
But your bank accounts are frozen, you lose your assets, and you go to jail.
Jared tries to make Bob see reason and tells him this is all a mistake. Jared then tries to intimidate Bob by saying he knows some powerful people, but Bob tells Jared that he doesn't care about who he is or who he knows. He assures him he's here to get his humane job done and nothing more. To pressure the siblings into enlisting, Bob reveals that he had his people look into each one of them and collect some dirty information from their browser histories, DMs, phone calls, and emails, which are printed on paper. To have some fun, Bob starts off by reading Jared's secrets. He reveals to Jared that the girlfriend he cheated on his wife with is cheating on him with 3 more guys. Bob then reveals to Jared that his son Lucas hates him and wants nothing to do with him. Before Bob can read more dirty secrets, Jared tells him to stop, so Bob moves on to read Rachel's secrets. As he does, Rachel punches him in the nose, causing him to bleed. So Bob decides to leave the papers and gives them 2 hours to make a decision. If they don't, Bob threatens to make it for them and pick one of them himself.
Flick the porch lights off and on when you've made your decision.
That leaves the siblings no choice but to sit and read the secrets Bob found about them. Noah reads his secrets and sits in despair by the piano. Ashley reads that her casting directors described her as a bad actress with no charisma, which makes her get riled up. As for Rachel, she just calmly sits in the kitchen and thinks about how to get out of this situation while sinisterly looking at a knife. As for Jared, he slaps himself in the face while thinking about how to get through this. Immediately after, the siblings gather to talk this over. Jared starts off and chooses Noah to sacrifice himself for them all because Noah had a drinking problem. This problem caused him to run a girl over in an accident. To this, Ashley adamantly says no and votes for Jared to be the sacrifice. This pisses off Jared, resulting in a heated argument with Ashley, which soon stops when Noah shouts at them to stop.
How dare you? I have a child!
Noah then admits his mistake of running that girl over, before adding that he became clean and learned his lesson, which is why he sees a future for himself and all his siblings if they all stick together to get through this situation, just like their father told them on his deathbed. However, Rachel still hates her father and curses him, thinking he set them up and caused them to be in this situation. Not knowing who'll be Dawn's replacement, Rachel has Bob come to have him do the choosing. Unfortunately, Bob decides to have them draw straws, to which the siblings say no. Rachel then asks Bob if they can deliver him a dead body to solve this situation. To this, Bob implicitly says yes by saying that if he were in their shoes, he would figure out a way himself. After Bob leaves, Noah asks what that was all about. Rachel beats around the bush and tells her siblings she's not dying tonight. She also doesn't care if one of her siblings dies, since she sees them once every year and doesn't know much about them.
I barely know you fucking people.
So Rachel stabs Noah before he pushes her away. Rachel shouts that Noah doesn't deserve to inherit any of their father's money. While Jared agrees, Rachel tells Ashley she'll have more of her father's money if she helps her and Jared kill Noah. As Noah tries to keep his siblings together, Ashley tosses Rachel the knife and sides with her before she reveals she saw an email on Charles' computer earlier, from which she learned Charles paid $3 million to the family of the girl Noah ran over to get them to drop the charges against Noah. While this shocks Jared and Rachel, a shocked Noah assures them he never knew about it until Dawn told him recently. However, this doesn't get him anywhere, as his siblings are already set on killing him to save their skin, so Jared arms himself with a poker, Ashley arms herself with a spray, and Rachel has a knife. Noah tells them to calm down, but they won't hear it, so they gang up on him and attack, but Noah easily fends them all off. As he runs to hide in a room, Rachel throws a knife at his back. Meanwhile, Bob is in his RV with Mia, waiting for the siblings to decide. After he allows Mia to use the bathroom, Bob gets a call from his guys, who tell him they have captured Dawn. This means that he can finally release the York siblings. However, Bob doesn't want to release them, so he orders his men to take Dawn to their headquarters and not to bring her home. During this time, Noah looks at his wounds and writes a text message to Grace, asking for her help. To make sure his phone picks up the signal, Noah throws his phone out of the window. Surprisingly, his phone picks up the signal and the message is delivered to Grace. Setting out to face his siblings, Noah breaks the piano stool and arms himself with its leg. Walking out of his room, Noah finds a fork on the floor and picks it up as another weapon. Checking the kitchen, Noah ties a tray to his torso as armor. Walking further, Noah finds a terrified Ashley hiding behind the door. Terrified, she says sorry for siding against him and blames it on Rachel. Instead of attacking her, Noah asks her where his other siblings are. Ashley tells him they're lying in wait for him to show up in the living room. Noah decides to go there to talk them into stopping this madness. Walking out of the room, Ashley has Noah look at an old picture of them when they were children. Looking at it, Noah reminisces about his old memories and puts his hand on the picture when suddenly Rachel and Jared ambush him. Again, Noah easily fights them off and asks Ashley for help. However, the terrified Ashley, who lured Noah into this trap, runs off, leaving Noah on his own again. Noah manages to take the knife off his hand, but after he does, he loses his balance. Fortunately, he manages to lock the door and keep himself safe. Noah then arms himself with a bat. He is getting ready to fight when Jared breaks the door to attack, but Noah throws the bat at his head. Rachel lunges at Noah and stabs him in his armored torso. However, Noah is not affected at all and stabs Rachel in the neck with the fork. Thinking Noah will kill her, Rachel tells Noah to give her love to Mia, but Noah spares her and tells her to do it herself. Due to his wounds, Noah loses balance again. Jared approaches him with 2 knives. He assures Noah he's not going to kill him out of racism. Before Jared can continue his gibberish, Noah knocks his lights out with the bat. Noah staggers further before Ashley comes from behind and knocks him out. Seeing her unconscious brother, Ashley panics and is beside herself with guilt. Following this, the siblings tie the unconscious Noah up. Ashley breaks down, feeling guilty for betraying Noah's trust. She can't bring herself to kill him.
I can't.
Rachel recalls that Noah could have killed her, but he spared her instead. Jared then assures Ashley she'll be fine and that this will all be over soon. All they need to do is kill their adopted brother. While counting to 3, the 3 siblings are holding their knives to kill Noah when suddenly someone honks the horn and calls for Noah to come out. The 3 siblings are shocked when they see that it's Grace. She's arrived after receiving Noah's message, and she is worried about him. As she asks the York siblings about where he is, the 3 assure her Noah's fine and urge her to go get them some help. Grace runs away to get some help, but Bob has his guy shoot her dead, shocking the 3 York siblings to the core. Now that Grace is dead, Rachel tells Bob he has a second body and asks him to leave them all be, but Bob wants the body of the Yorks and blames Grace's death on them.
Get back inside the house and finish what you started.
Soon after, the siblings are going upstairs to finish Noah off when they find that Noah has pulled a Houdini, untied himself, stole their knives, and disappeared. This shocks his siblings. To add more to their horror, Noah cuts the power off. After turning on their flashlights and arming themselves with whatever kitchen utensils they can find, the three siblings start looking for Noah around the house, when suddenly Noah appears in front of them with a knife, before he brutally stabs Ashley and beats up the other two. Rachel begs him and says sorry, but the enraged Noah brutally hits her. The heavily injured Ashley is crawling her way out when Noah stops her to finish her off and hand her body over to Bob. Rachel begs Noah to spare Ashley and tells Noah to kill her instead. Jared interrupts and asks to be the sacrifice. After coming to his senses, Noah tells them enough is enough. He reminds them that they're family, not enemies, and that the only enemy they need to kill is Bob.
Let's get Bob.
Meanwhile, Bob is talking to Mia in the RV when his watch starts ticking. Now the 2 hours are over. Bob and his guy named Tony are walking into the mansion to check on the siblings when they find Ashley lying dead. The rest of the Yorks appear with their hands up as Tony holds them at gunpoint. Bob is thanking the siblings for finally giving him a body when suddenly Ashley stabs Tony in the leg, signaling her siblings to ambush Bob and capture him. The rest of Bob's guys walk in and point their guns at the siblings to stop them. While holding a knife to Bob's throat, Noah forces him to have his men stand down and hand over their weapons. Just then, Ashley succumbs to her injury and drops dead. This distracts Noah, allowing Bob to headbutt him. Just as Bob thinks he got the situation under control, Jared knocks him out unconscious with the butt of the gun. Bob then wakes up to find himself tied to a stretcher after the York siblings forced Tony to set everything up for the euthanasia procedure.
They forced me to show them how to set everything up.
However, Bob keeps his cool and says he has the situation under control. He confidently assures the Yorks they'll all end up in jail if they hurt him or any of his men. Not only that, but their children will end up under the custody of the state. Bob then offers to forget about the whole situation and have his men pick Ashley's covered body off the floor if the siblings spare him. However, Rachel unveils the body, and it turns out to be one of Bob's people who the siblings accidentally killed in their first attempt at the euthanasia procedure. Seeing the body, Bob becomes uneasy, and Noah decides to euthanize him. Scared for his life, Bob tries to talk his way out, but Noah doesn't want to hear Bob out anymore. He's about to kill him when Bob reveals that his guys captured Dawn, pissing off Noah. Bob threatens Noah. If he kills him, his people will kill Dawn. However, he'll have his people let her go if Noah spares him. Days later, Noah is seen playing the piano on stage, while all of the Yorks, along with Dawn, are enjoying the show. Clearly, they took Bob's deal. Later, a news report comes in about Ashley and Grace. It portrays the two girls as heroes who sacrificed themselves to save the planet. The beat-up Bob shows up on screen and describes them as one of his top volunteers.